Chapter 9. Midnight Visitors. The doorbell woke us at midnight. We were terrified, thinking my time to die had come. I told my wife, "Be calm. We need to let this go smoothly. If our daughter Nargis wakes up, she will be terrified. You need to take care of her and teach her the honor of our country as long as you are able to live." I said goodbye, assuming it would be my last, and went outside to avoid the guard's entrance into my home to kill me in front of my family. The fear had already taken away half my strength. While walking in the front yard towards the gate, I dragged my feet on the ground to let them know that they were not ignored. When I opened the gate, I expected guns to be drawn and pointed at my head. I saw two men in Revolutionary Army uniforms carrying pistols, standing there without touching their guns. I was speechless. They also didn't speak for a few seconds. Maybe they wanted to make sure that it was me. However, they then began talking quietly. "Please do not be afraid. We are your friends, R and A. We had no choice but to come late at night. We do not want anyone to see us or know we are with you." I was shocked, still unable to speak. I saw that, indeed, they were my precious old friends who had previously helped me in a crisis. For their safety, I'm unable to reveal the details of the crisis. I had not seen them for several years due to my separation from the Islamic Republican Party, which they continued to serve. Now my friends had come from far away and were standing before me in the middle of the night. It was like a horrifying dream, and my heart grieved to think that it would be these two who killed me. Mullahs know from the instructions of their prophet that if they persuade someone to kill his friend, the murder will take place quietly. I learned not to trust anyone I saw in the uniform of the Revolutionary Army because of my experience in the political prisons. Those who were once our friends were now torturing us as prison guards. To see my friends in this uniform in the middle of the night was terrifying to me. I did not invite them in since I had put in my mind that they had come to kill me. If this is the case, then let them kill me at the gate rather than inside the house, terrifying my wife and daughter, I said to myself. With a very quiet voice, I asked, "Why you? Friends must die for friends according to our culture, but not kill their friends." They looked to each other, and then one said, "Are you going to let us in or not? We are still your friends. We cannot talk to you at the gate." I respected them so much for what they had done for me in the time of the Shah. I said to myself, since they are insisting to come in, I should not allow the fear of my death to prevent my respect for them. I should get them in and let my wife and daughter know that I was still appreciative of the sacrifices these two men did to me, and even my death could not reduce my love and respect for them. I let them in and closed the gate. I asked them, "Would you please wait here for a moment so I can tell my wife that you are friends? Otherwise, she'll be scared when she sees your uniforms." I raised my voice and called to my wife, "I'm okay. Don't be afraid. Two of my old friends have come a long way. They are coming in. We need to look after them." I asked my friends to sit a while, offering them food and drink. In the meantime, my wife joined us. "We do not have time to stay," they said. "We need to leave your house as soon as possible and go back the same way we have come. We will not be able to see each other again. We need to explain now." As I sat, one of my friends told me of a plan that answered the questions that had been plaguing me since my release. "We have put our lives at risk to release you temporarily. Our legal excuse is that your document must be reviewed, but we are certain that you will not be able to avoid this death sentence unless you escape from the country." The mullahs were clever enough to convince the judge to issue your death sentence. The judge is also an Ayatollah, and the supreme judge would not risk rejecting the death order of an Ayatollah. I didn't want to escape. The president had escaped, and many of his followers and colleagues, including myself, had criticized him for being a coward. I said, "Look, I prefer to die in Iran than to escape." They appealed to my wife. "You need to encourage your husband to leave the country. If he doesn't leave, he is putting you, your daughter, and us in jeopardy." This matter-of-fact pronouncement preceded my friend's exit. Escape. I weighed my options. My enemies were strong. Nothing would stop them from carrying out my death sentence. My friends, realizing my certain demise, used their position at great risk to themselves and their families to provide me with a way of escape. Also, if I remained, I would not be allowed to work. Critics of the Islamic Republic of Iran had no right to an income. At this time, my wife was able to work but was going through a lot of pressure due to her connection with me. Her employment wasn't secure. Even with my wife's meager income, my family would live in poverty. Our daughter's education would be jeopardized. The solution, though painful, was clear. I had to flee Iran. So early in 1985, a few months after the midnight visit, with the help of a few reliable people who worked on the border of Iran and Turkey, I began a journey that would change my life forever. My name was blacklisted at border control, as was the case with all political opponents whose court cases were not yet unfinished. If your name was in the blacklist, you were not permitted to cross the border. I was advised to have my legal passport in hand. This was the passport that I had obtained when I was still in power before my imprisonment, and it was not expired yet. Those who were helping me cross the border said that a valid passport could save my life if the plan did not work. We arrived at border control. I was introduced to a customs official who worked at the border where I could gain entry to Turkey. 2 other men were in the line to help me get through customs. Their role was to exchange their places with me in the line, if necessary, so that I could pass by the desired customs agent. We did not acknowledge one another to avoid suspicion. Religious guards were everywhere. As we approached the front of the line, unexpectedly, a guard came forward and started to direct people to 2 lines. I had been told that the customs agent I had met would call for the next in line. Fear gripped my being. What is going to happen now? Will I make it or not? Will I be sent to the correct line? Or will this be another disaster in my life? I was between my 2 helpers, but unable to talk to them because the guard was standing close beside us. Under my breath, I said, "I do not know what to do." I wasn't sure either man heard me. Should I get out of line and withdraw from the plan? If I did this, what would the other 2 men do? If we left together, the guards probably would stop us and discover our plan. If I stayed in line, even if I was not able to make it, only I would be caught. The other 2 would not be charged for conspiracy. I stayed in the line, surrendering myself to random chance. But I was directed to the other customs agent. When he checked my name in the computer, he saw that my name was on the blacklist and I was not allowed to cross the border. He turned me over to the guards who took me to the office of the chief guard. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To Turkey for a few days' holiday, sir," I replied. "How can you leave with your name on the blacklist?" "I was not aware of it, sir." He ordered one of the guards to take my bag to the room and list the contents in it. He took my passport and gave it to a guard in an adjoining room, ordered him to do something, then came back to his chair. I was standing in the room and the other guard was still there, apparently watching me. After 10 minutes or so, the guard from the other room brought back my passport to the chief with a typed letter. A detour. "Your passport is confiscated," the chief said. "We have faxed this letter to the revolutionary judge in your city. You have to take the copy of this letter to the revolutionary judge in your town and inform them what happened. Make sure that you do what you've been told. Otherwise, you invite trouble for yourself and your family." "Certainly, sir," I responded. After a few minutes, the other guard came in with my handbag and gave him a sheet of paper with a list of my belongings on it. The chief ordered him to return the bag to me and dismiss me. I left the room and eventually the border control and walked towards the center of the border town called Mekku to find transportation back to my home. It was early evening. I did not know what happened to the 2 men in line who were to help me. All I knew was that one of them was sent through customs before me. I caught a bus headed to Tehran. I would go there first and head north to Gilan. I was given a window seat at the back of the bus in the row before the last on the left side. The bus drove and a bit later stopped to pick up another passenger. It was a teenager around 18 or 19 years old who was led to the aisle seat beside me. Just after sitting, he stretched out his hand to shake mine. Though I thought it strange, I shook his hand. Why would he want a handshake if we did not know each other? In a situation like this, people only greet each other without a handshake. A teenager, especially a strange one, never stretches his hand to shake the hand of someone older than him unless the older one stretches his hand first. "How are you, sir?" he asked then. "I'm okay, thank you." A few minutes later, I remembered that I had not checked to see if my money was still in my handbag after the guard returned it to me. I opened the bag, pretending to take something, and saw the money but was unable to count it. The boy beside me could be dangerous. The area was infamous as a place unsafe for passengers. In the daytime, the government controlled the area. At night, Kurdish freedom fighters were the authority in many parts. So, the security of the people was not an issue for either faction. It was a thief's haven. The boy then asked me, "Weren't you let out of the country?" Frightened, I wondered how he knew of my situation. Perhaps he'd seen me at the border, or was one of the guards now in normal clothes, or was a friend with a guard for a plot. I felt that I was in danger. I countered with a question, "Are we friends that you would try to know my personal life? Could you please mind your own business?" He did not respond, but his body language showed that he did not like the way I responded to him. After a few minutes, I saw that he took a knife out of his pocket with a few other tools all joined together by a chain and started to play with them. I knew he was trying to intimidate me. The bus driver was required to stop at every checkpoint for passengers to be checked by religious guards. The first checking station was at the outskirts of the town. The bus stopped and 2 guards boarded. One stood at the entrance, and the other came to the back of the bus, ordering everyone out. As soon as the boy saw the guards, he put his knife back into his pocket. The passengers were asked to take their belongings with them. We went out and waited in line for the inspection. When my turn arrived, a guard led me into a room with a third guard who took my bag from me and went into another room to check its contents. I was questioned by the guard in the room about where I was coming from and why I was turned back. The investigation took longer than usual. I was the last one to get my bag back. The bus was waiting for me. I rushed into the bus but did not go to my seat. I told the bus driver about the young boy in the bus. I said that if I could not sit in a different place, I would get off and wait for another bus. The bus driver gave me one of the front seats. I put my bag in a little space in front of me between my legs, glad to be away from the boy. As the bus driver pulled away from the checkpoint, the boy came forward and asked, "Why did you sit this man beside you? Did he say anything about me?" The driver said, "Look, this is not an easy driving zone. I have to drive very carefully. One mistake can take the life of all. Why don't you sit in your seat until I pass this area and then I will answer your question." Everybody knew that this area was a dangerous zone. Stopping on this road could result in a robbery. The boy did not go back to his seat. He leaned on the door and glanced at me periodically. The driver also must have been afraid, not wanting to speak to him aggressively. He may have had a gun hidden or friends waiting on the road ahead of us. I relaxed as we approached the next checkpoint, which was a police station. A policeman with a gun in his hand was standing in front of the building. Immediately, I got out of the bus and went to the police, telling him that I was afraid of a possible thief in the bus. "Could you please help me to get another bus going to Tehran?" I asked. While I was talking to him, the boy got out of the bus and conveyed through body language that the police should avoid helping me. I pointed out the boy to the policeman, and to my relief he said, "Stay here beside me. I'll get you another bus." The bus driver saw me standing outside and said, "We are going, jump in." I told him I would take a later bus. The driver knew the boy was a problem, but didn't want the police to think he couldn't handle it, so he said, "Don't worry about the boy, he won't hurt you." "Look," said the policeman, "we know that you're a good driver, but he is okay. To avoid problems, I'd better send him on another bus." The bus driver boarded, waiting for the boy to get on. He hesitated, but got on, giving me and the policeman fierce looks. Then the bus departed. Within a few minutes, other buses arrived. The policeman knew one of the drivers well and asked him to give me a lift to Tehran. The new driver let me sit beside him, saying, "You look very tired. You and your bag are safe here. Nobody can touch you unless he walks over my dead body first. So have peace of mind and rest as long as you want." This was a great relief to me. The bus arrived in Tehran the following morning, and I caught another bus to Talesh immediately after that. The following night, I arrived home. I called a friend and asked him to come with me to the court, as I was told at the border. I thought if they took me back to prison or wanted something else, my friend would be able to take the message to my family. The following day, we went to the court, but the judge did not send me to prison. He asked for bail as guarantee that I would not leave the city without the permission of the court. Without asking, my friend offered his house as bond, and I was released from the court. Selling yogurt. My credibility was waning. I lost my friends and followers. Friendships were not easy to maintain anymore. Fear of the mullahs kept people away from me. Financially, we were in dire straits. I was not allowed to work, and for this reason, our savings were disappearing fast. Some of our family and friends helped us financially, but this could not continue. If the mullahs knew that they were helping us, it would put them at risk. Without work, the financial pressure was great, and I had no choice but to take my wife and daughter to our village and live in a little orchard farm with my mother in the house I built for her while I was in government but remained unfinished. As a city girl, my wife was unable to adapt herself to the hard life in the village, and this made our married life calamitous. I desired to end our marriage, but this would make the family problems far more complicated. How could I look after our very young daughter without her mother, with poverty, and while uncertain about the future and living day by day? My 60-year-old mother was poor, managing her life with a milking cow and a small farm. While I was working, she did not have financial difficulties. But after I lost everything, her life was affected as well. To survive, she sold milk and yogurt, walking 45 minutes from our village to the town to find customers. She became ill and was unable to take her products to the market, so I would do it for her to buy bread for the household. But it was not easy for me to do this because of my fame. I was embarrassed. However, my mother's courage was a good lesson. She did not worry what people thought about her. Selling milk and yogurt put me at risk politically. I was a famous politician known to thousands of people who thought I deserved to be one of the leading figures in the country. But now I was selling yogurt and milk for survival. Many people who saw my mother and I expressed their unhappiness to us secretly, blaming the mullahs as the cause of our poverty. The area's authorities interpreted this as political propaganda against them and told me to stop selling the yogurt. I was an educated man and leader of many people. They didn't want the people to think that the governing mullahs were the cause of my financial hardship. I was well aware that the mullahs' evil roots were stronger than ever in the country, and I had to avoid any direct opposition with them. When they requested that I stop selling, I told them, "My mother normally sells the yogurt and milk, but at the moment she's sick and I have no choice but to do this for her. I'm just trying to feed my family, not fighting the government. I cannot stop this until my mother is well." What I was doing was not political propaganda, but the mullahs saw it as a silent war against them. However, they did not take me to prison again. I believe that they were afraid of the people and did not want to do so. They also knew that some powerful people were behind my release. Who they were, they did not know, but they were aware if they took me to prison, they would be face to face with a legal authority more powerful than them. By that time, all my fellow prison inmates and a few other friends had been killed. Local authorities, expecting that I would have been executed by now as well, plotted to kill me secretly and free the community from influence. Hit by a truck. One day in 1986, I had sold yogurt, bought bread, and was heading home on foot. The street was lined with small manufacturing businesses. It was the same street where I pleaded with the guard several months ago to allow me to see my family for a few minutes while I was being taken to Chalus for my death sentence. Some of my friends and relatives also had businesses there. As I was walking, I realized that a few religious guards were driving back and forth down both sides of the road. They slowed each time they approached me, looking at me strangely. Although I was unnerved, I tried to look unassuming. As I neared the workshop of a friend, I decided to go in. I told him I thought something may happen to me. He offered to take me home in his car, but I didn't want to cause trouble for him. I was sure that if the guards had an evil plan, they would harm him too. I left his workshop and continued to walk towards home. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of an accident behind me. I turned around and saw that a guard's SUV was pushing a larger truck onto the sidewalk area so it could hit me. The truck belonged to the city council, and its driver was also a volunteer religious guard. I ran as fast as I could when I saw the truck getting closer to me. In a split second, I decided to throw myself into a deep ditch that ran parallel between the sidewalk and the street. However, the truck caught my left foot and twisted me in the air and threw me down into the ditch. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, many people gathered around me. My left leg had abrasions, my ankle was dislocated, and my heel was broken. Some people wanted to take me to the hospital, but friends advised against it, afraid that a government agent could kill me by injection and nobody would know it. They took me to my home and brought 2 traditional doctors to care for me. By the time the doctors arrived, my leg was swollen and black, making the job harder for them and extremely painful for me. As they worked to set the bones, the severe pain caused me to vomit and faint several times. These doctors did the best they could with their traditional medical care, but for a long time I was unable to stand. It was a year before I was able to walk again. Even then, I limped from the pain. Blessing in disguise? The truck driver who hit me came to my house alone one day. He apologized, saying he was forced to attempt to kill me in partnership with the guard. He was so glad that I did not die. Though the accident disabled me for a year, paradoxically, I gained momentum. The plot of local authorities became clear to everyone, and people realized that it was they who wanted to kill me. This caused me more fame than ever in the eyes of the people. The authorities backed off, leaving me alone for a while, and as a result, some fearful friends took a step of courage and rebuilt their relationship with me again. After I started to walk, a friend offered me a job at his business, but under another name, as it was illegal for me to work. It was a management position, and my salary reflected that. He took such a risk to help me because the local authorities had retreated from their pursuit of me at that time. This job not only met my family's financial needs, but also enabled me to save money. After several months, I bought a tractor and a truck and asked my younger brother to work them so that I could gain extra income. My brother started to plow the lands and carry sand for construction. Our income grew rapidly, and I invested in real estate under the name of another friend. Within a year, I became a millionaire according to the Iranian Rial. I took my wife and daughter to the city and lived in a rental house. I also started to build a house for my wife in the city. This made my wife happy and eased the tension in our marriage. At this time, she was pregnant with our second child. I also invested in my mother's house and finished it so that my younger brother could live with my mother as an appreciation of his role in making big money through the tractor. My mother did not need to sell milk or yogurt anymore. I made myself busy with investments to make money and also give false confidence to the authorities that I was going to live in Iran and wouldn't want to leave the country. A secure way to leave. Towards the end of 1987, I started to plan a secure way for me to leave the country. My death sentence was still on me. I believe my friends who released me were delaying the issue of the review of my papers so that I could once again attempt to leave the country. On the other hand, I had become a wealthy man and would have loved to stay alive longer. Life seemed good. My wife and I now had 3 daughters, and I wanted to leave Iran and find a safe place for them to live. I needed to have my passport back and my name removed from the blacklist in the ports. I knew that only influential people could accomplish this. At that time, our city was preparing for an election. A few men who gained their legal status from the authorities announced their candidacy for the parliament and began campaigning. It was a good time for me to build a relationship with an influential follower of one of these candidates. This would pave the way for my future needs to be met. The man I chose acted as a mediator, and my passport was released to him from the Revolutionary Court in our city. When I was told that my name would soon be removed from the blacklist, I rejoiced. Immediately, I took measures to leave the country while the city was busy with the election. I exchanged most of my money for the U.S. dollar. A friend from another city offered to travel with me to make sure I crossed the border into Turkey. I had $44,000. At that time, passengers had to report foreign currency written in the passport by a bank. I had $22,000 in my passport and the other $22,000 in my friend's passport. It was the beginning of 1988 when we traveled to the same border from where I was previously sent back. My friend and I were sent to one customs agent since we were traveling together. He gave his passport first and got the exit stamp. When the agent checked my passport, he informed me that I was on the blacklist and not allowed to leave. I was told my name had been removed from the blacklist, I said. I don't know about that, but as long as your name is on the blacklist, you cannot go out. As he was calling a guard to take care of me, I quickly gave all my money to my friend and said to him, "It seems to me my situation will be harder this time than the previous one. I hope the way they gave the passport to me is not a plot. Otherwise, they can accuse me of a second attempt to escape. Talk to my wife and see if she wants to take the children and leave the country. Also, tell her that she has my consent for anything she wants to do." The guard took me to the chief guard, who was not as kind as the one I'd met here a couple years before. This man was extremely rude, pointing his pistol to my head and shouting at me. He took my passport and ordered a guard to bring him the document made under my name when I was returned to my hometown in 1985. Looking at the document, he said, "A second attempt at escape? This is not a lawless country, sir. Who do you think we are? Anti-revolutionaries cannot cross the border. They must be kept inside the country and be persecuted forever for their actions against the revolution until they understand what justice is." "I do not want to cross the border illegally," I told him. "I was given my passport back and told that I was free to go out any time I liked." "Your name is on the blacklist. You should have checked this first," he shouted. "I did, sir. That's why I'm here. Could you please do me a favor and call the authorities to confirm this?" For a few minutes he said nothing. He called a guard from the next room and asked him to make a phone call and connect the phone to him when someone responded. Then he ordered me to sit on a chair. I was there without any guard beside me. Suddenly, emotions overwhelmed me and tears poured from my eyes. I whispered to myself, "Oh, my painful soul, it seems to me that there is no one to understand you." The subordinate guard reported to the chief saying, "I left a message, but no one has called back." "Wait a bit and try again," he said. 3 times the guard came to the chief guard and reported to him that there had been no response to his calls. At the end, the chief guard went to the guard's room and closed the door. After about 5 minutes, he came to me and said, "We called the revolutionary mayor, the revolutionary court of your city, and the immigration office in Tehran, but no one has responded so far. Forgive us for keeping you so long, Please go to Customs, get your passport stamped, and enter Turkey. I alerted Customs to stamp your passport. The sudden change in the chief's attitude shocked and astonished me. What happened that he became so obliging towards me and allowed me to cross the border with no confirmation from the authorities? Was there a supernatural hand shattering the high wall for me so that I could cross the border? Who knows? I received my passport and thanked him with bowing down and left. The distance between the chief guard's office and the Customs was around 100 yards. I did not have full control over my legs because of fear and shock. I was emotionally gripped in both fear and excitement while I was walking this distance. Fear because it was not believable, and excitement because if I made it, I would be free. It was terrifying for me to turn around and look back and see whether the chief or a guard was watching me. I had learned in prison when a guard asked you to go, you had to go with all your being focused and going. You never look around. If you do, and take notice of the things around you, you may lose or be shot. I returned to the same customs agent. He stamped my passport, and I crossed the Iranian border into the Turkish immigration area. My passport was stamped by a Turkish agent too, and I entered Turkey. There, I would discover another amazing miracle.